Interestingly, though, Joe Biden's speechwriters didn't give him any cogent words with which to deal with another sort of hacking, one of the biggest stories of the week. That would be the hacking of cabinet-level emails at the State and Commerce Department by China.
Mr. President, can you tell us about the hacking of cabinet officials by China and the threshold of concern you have about that, sir?
Ready? Yes. How we get these guys now?
Well, they, and by they I mean we, don't call him Walkaway Joe for nothing. Now, this certainly wasn't the happy ending Biden got when he delivered a speech in Philadelphia the other day. Stop it. You can talk about other leaders that way, but not Joe Biden the other day. And he was allowed to eat ice cream sandwiches with construction workers. And speaking of unhappy endings, the chances that the Biden presidency could break down in scandal got a little higher this week with the release of a confidential witness statement from the FBI, shedding further light on what appears to have been a multi-million-dollar bribery scheme involving Joe, the first fail son Hunter, and that Ukrainian oil and gas concern, Burisma. Burisma, the company that somehow decided Hunter was just the man they needed when it came to knowing about exploring for natural resources. Who knows? Maybe they heard he was good at drilling. Whatever. This came on the back of whistleblower testimony on Capitol Hill, alleging that the Department of Justice, headed by Biden Attorney General Merrick Garland, interfered in the investigation into Hunter Biden's alleged criminal activities.
United States Attorney Weiss and Attorney General Garland will each be sitting before these committees one day. They will have to admit that despite all their obfuscation, the absolute fact is that this case was presented to two presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California. That no charges were brought in those districts tells you everything that you need to know.
And there's a promise of a lot more to come. Next week, Hunter Biden's business partner, who's been thrown under a bus more times in a Parramatta Road pothole, will also be testifying to Congress. In the meantime, I have to wonder, what's the holdup? I mean, if America is now in the business of indicting former presidents over payoffs to mistresses, surely current presidential families being on the take from Ukraine is worth a bit more of the court's time. Former FBI Assistant Director of Intelligence Kevin Brock agrees.
Tape recorded a lot of the conversations that he had with Hunter Biden, to include two conversations directly with Joe Biden. The FBI needs to know what's on those tapes. We don't know whether or not they took steps to interview Zlochevsky, or whether they have those, whether he turned over those tapes or copies of those tapes to the FBI. That's a key piece of evidence, obviously. If they were in possession of something like that, you would think a case would have been brought to the grand jury to pursue an indictment. So we don't know where that stands right now, unless, John, you have other information along those lines that I'm not privy to. But there's more than enough here to do a full field investigation into the Bidens using every tool that the FBI has at its disposal.
But that's the whole point, isn't it? I mean, let's get beyond the whole Democrat-Republican thing to ask just what the hell is going on in America. It seems to me that there is very much one rule of law for the political insider class that is holding on for dear life to power, and another for outsiders and those who would seek to overthrow them. Okay. These people like Trump, aren't revolutionaries. Better term for them might be counter-elites. But whatever you say about them, they are a threat to the establishment. This means that the insiders, those in power, must be protected at all costs, and those on the out must be demonized and expelled, which explains all the lefty fantasies about Donald Trump and orange jumpsuits. It explains much more, too, such as the massive push that's on to restrict free speech and the flow of information, and inconvenient truth as misinformation, as well as the consistent use of fear, something Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talks a lot about, to keep people frozen in place and not asking questions. It's a terrible place for America to be in, but the more desperate the Biden's game becomes, the more likely it becomes that the game will one day finally be up.